Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, I pray you are all doing well. I want to take a few moments with you right now to talk about Ruqya, specifically some misconduct that can occur in Ruqya. Let's begin by looking at, generally speaking, what you should expect if you go to receive Ruqya. Ruqya being spiritual healing. You will go and you'll find a person there. It could be a male or a female. They could be a formal religious leader, such as an imam or someone well known in the community, or someone who just has experience doing and training doing ruqya. And essentially what's going to happen is the raqi, the reciter, will sit and recite verses from the Quran or say invocations from the hadith tradition. The one receiving ruqya, the one being recited upon, will be sitting on a chair, maybe laying down, and generally speaking, the reciter will be somewhat close to the one being recited upon, a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, or something along those lines. And it is common when the reciter recites, they place their hand on a certain part of the person's body where the person is feeling pain. The pain could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental. This is the general gist of ruqya. Ruqya can also occur on water or oil. The raqi, the reciter, will recite verses from the Quran, supplications from hadith tradition on a gallon of water or a bottle of olive oil. This is also part of ruqya. Now, some things that shouldn't happen, and you should be very aware of this, are the following. The first red flag you should always be aware of is when it comes to seclusion. It is not part of ruqya to be secluded from everyone else. In other words, if the raqi is insisting and saying, I have to be alone with you, you should take that as a major red flag. In fact, just cross that person out and find yourself another raqi, especially if the person's from another gender. If the raqi is a male and you are a female, and they say, I need to be alone with you, or you need to rent a place, or I need to come to your home without anyone there, this is a major red flag. In fact, it's haram. The Sharia is very clear, my dear brothers and sisters. It is haram for a man and a woman who are not relatives, right, and who are not spouses to be alone together, secluded, away from the eyes of people. It's haram. And the scholars have said in the books of fiqh that if a physician needs to do something for a woman, then the mahram must be present. A mahram for the woman must be present. A physician cannot be alone with their patient if the patient is of the opposite gender. A mahram needs to be there. So if the raqi is saying you need to be alone, even if you are of the same gender, this is not part of ruqya. Seclusion is not necessary when it comes to ruqya. So that's the first major red flag you should look for. The second is touching. Technically speaking, touching does not need to occur. Yes, I mentioned that it's common for the raqi to place their hand on the patient, but it's not necessary. And it is haram for a male raqi to touch a non-mahram female. It's not allowed, and it's not necessary. For physicians, it's necessary. But even when it's necessary, it's only in that particular area. If a woman's arm is hurting her, the physician cannot put his hand on her thighs or on her shoulders or on another part of the body. So touching is not necessary, and when it comes to touching the opposite gender, it is strictly haram. So if the raqi says, I need to place my hand on your body, that's haram. That's not part of ruqya when it's the opposite gender. Also, if the raqi does this without your permission, you got to stop it right there and say this is not allowed, this is not acceptable. In fact, this is harassment and it's haram. Especially if it's certain sensitive parts of the body, the private parts. It's not part of ruqya. So that's the second major flag when it comes to touching. The third is the removing of clothing. You do not need to remove your clothes, any part of your clothing, when it comes to ruqya. You do not need to expose any part of your body. This isn't medicine where the doctor needs to see the body because they need to see the symptoms and what's going on there. Ruqya is not like that. We're talking about the realm of the soul. and the realm of the soul is not physical. And so what the body, what's under one's garments, how the skin looks, all of that is not part of ruqya. And so if your raqi asks you to remove clothing, then know that that's a major red flag. Don't continue with this individual. Now, in certain, maybe very rare, very rare and severe scenarios and circumstances, the raqi might, by necessity, say, look, I have to touch a certain part of the female's body, maybe the arm, wherever it is. But even then, the scholar said the woman needs to place a thick layer over her, like a blanket, a thick blanket, and then from there, he places his hand on the blanket, not on her body. So please do be aware of that. The fourth major red sign is in terms of what's being said. Ruqya is only performed through Quran and through hadith, the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. If the person's not speaking Arabic, not reciting Quran, not reciting supplications from hadith, or if you don't hear what they are saying, you need to stop the person and say, wait a minute, what are you saying? What's the words you are saying? And you need to be aware of this. Likewise, if they're not speaking out loud, then ruqya isn't occurring. Ruqya is about the body hearing the words of Allah, hearing the invocations of the Prophet ﷺ, and that seeps into the soul and begins to heal it. And if the person isn't reciting out loud, then there's something wrong here. Stop the person and say, can you please recite out loud? I need to hear this. If they refuse, then that's a major red flag. If they are saying things in other languages, not in Arabic, if they're not saying things from Quran and Hadith, that's a major red flag. You might say, well, I don't have Quran memorized. So maybe he's saying something from the Quran, I don't know it's from the Quran, or he claims it's from the Quran. Well, you should do a little bit of research prior to going to a raqi to understand what you're about to hear. And also bring someone with you. Bring someone who does know Quran with you so that you can be aware of this. Another thing to be aware of is in terms of the information the raqi is asking you for. The raqi does not need to know anything about you aside from maybe what you are feeling or your condition. He might say, when you recite the Quran, how do you feel? When you hear the Quran, how does that make you feel? He might ask you about your prayer, some of these things to better acquire or to better acquaint him or herself with what's going on. But personal information is unnecessary. The name of your mother, the name of your father, how many siblings you have, how old you are, where you come from, all of this is completely unnecessary. If someone were to come to me personally and say, Sheikh, can you do a little bit of ruqya on me? I'll say, okay, come, I'll do the ruqya and that's it. I don't need to know who the person is. Right? And so do be aware of that, especially if they ask you for your mother's name. This is a major red flag. A major red flag, and I don't have time to get into details as to why. So be conscious of what the person's asking you for. Also, what you need to be aware of is in terms of asking for payment. Now here in America, maybe the person, this is part of a part-time job that they have and it's part of their own livelihood. There's nothing wrong with receiving payment for doing ruqya. It's part of the hadith tradition which the Prophet ﷺ allowed. But generally speaking, the customs of a raqi is that they don't really ask. Normally they don't ask. And if the person does this service for you, they don't ask, then it is part of kindness and generosity to at least offer to repay them for their services. So do be aware of that. Also, another major red flag, which is haram, unequivocally haram, is for the raqi to say, I need to apply the oil or ointments upon you. This is a major red flag. There should not be any touching occurring, especially if it's of the opposite gender or of private parts. If a raqi says, I'm going to recite ruqya on oil for you, then it is upon you, the one receiving the ruqya, to take that oil and apply the ointment. No one else. It's upon you. Same thing with using water recited on to bathe yourself or to drink. If the raqi says, I'll bathe you, this is a major red flag. You need to get away from that person. It is haram to continue thereof. Also, another major red flag to be aware of is the placing of vessels or the wearing of talismans. A person might come and say, okay, take this jar, take this piece of paper, this thing and wear it on your neck, put it under your bed, put it under your pillow. And this is concerning. What you need to do is open whatever they gave you and look at what's inside. Often what happens is they put things that is not part of Islam, it has shirk in it and whatnot. We don't believe in talismans, we don't believe in placing these things in different areas. So you really need to get rid of that. It's not part of Ruqya. And last but not least, always look for a raqi who's of your gender. Women should look for other women to perform Ruqya. A man should look for another man to perform Ruqya. Also, you can start off by doing Ruqya upon yourself. You don't need to go to a raqi to do Ruqya. Maybe in some extreme cases or some more severe cases, yes, you need a professional. But if you're feeling a little bit down, you feel like your energy is off, you feel like that you've been affected by the evil eye or something, begin by performing Ruqya on yourself. You can find how-to guides on YouTube, you can find how-to guides online. Just make sure it follows the conditions that I mentioned. What is being recited is from Quran and from Hadith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, and I pray that what I've provided you is inshallah, some education for you to be better protected, better aware of certain deception that might occur, or some people who are really trying to prey on vulnerable individuals or to make a career out of something they're not trained to be performing in. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, and I ask you to please share this. Please share this with as many people as possible so that this information is disseminated across the community. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.